This week on World Traveler Cooking, we're going to make Lyonnaise potatoes. These are a wonderful variety of pan-fried potatoes. I'm going to show you how to do it. Real simple, real easy, but you have to be a little careful about how much you make. You can only make so much at a time. So our ingredients are real simple. We have an onion, we have 4 potatoes, some butter. I'm using a French butter today, and some olive oil. We'll then season right at the end with salt and pepper. So I'm going to start boiling my potatoes, and basically I'm going to boil the potatoes for about 4 minutes, 4 or 5 minutes. You don't want to do it too long because then they'll break apart at the next stage, but you don't want to start with them raw either. So I'll be back after the potatoes are boiled. So I've julienned the onions and I've boiled the potatoes for about 4 minutes. And now I'm going to I'm going to peel them here. If they don't peel really well, that's fine. I can just use a vegetable peeler. But the point is, I'm going to peel them now that they've been boiled for a bit. And once I've peeled these, I'll be back. So next I'm going to cut these into 1/4 inch or 5 millimeter thick rounds. Now obviously normally I do this on a cutting board, but I think for demonstration purposes it's easier just to keep everything here. And we're just going to cut them into pieces like this. You don't want to cut them too thin, because if you do, they will break apart. But if you make them too thick, then you'll lose some of the charm. So shoot for about 5-6 millimeters, or 1/4 inch. If it's wider than that, that's fine. So I'll be back when all these are sliced. So now I have a nice iron frying pan, in this case a carbon steel frying pan. These are probably the primary thing we use for Lyonnaise cooking. It's hot, so I'm going to start adding the butter. I've added about 25-30 grams of butter, and I'm going to add a similar amount of olive oil. We want to be pretty generous here. Then we're going to stir this around. And as soon as the butter melts, I will add half of my onions, that's like half an onion, and half of my potatoes, that's like 2 medium-sized all-purpose potatoes. This is on a medium flame. Figuring out how to translate that into another type of stove is difficult. You may have to just kind of play with it. So there's the onion and half of the potatoes. And basically I'm going to stir and saute this for a while. I'll pan fry this while I wait for things to start browning. Once they do, I'll add the rest. Okay, so here I see the onions are just starting to brown, and so are the potatoes. They're just a little bit, not a lot yet. So I'm going to add another maybe 15-20 grams of butter. That's like a tablespoon, and a similar amount of olive oil, and the rest of the potatoes and onions. Now, it's really important when you make this dish that you don't overfill the pan, because then things won't crisp up properly. You also the hard part of this dish is actually balancing when to add the second batch, because again, that'll impact how well it crisps up. So here's the butter. Olive oil. Rest of the onion. Stir that in, and then I'm going to stir in the potatoes. And then from here we do kind of need to stir fairly frequently so that everything gets kind of nicely evenly fried. So I'm going to do that for a few minutes and then I'll be back. So here we're getting pretty close. You can see how nicely brown the onions are. The potatoes are browning up nicely. And it's a little tricky to finish this out, so I'm actually going to start picking out the most done parts. But that's optional. If you have a larger frying pan, you might not need to do that. So to plate, I'm just going to grab a few potatoes, lay them out nicely on the plate, make sure we have some nice browned onions on top. And you can also garnish with some parsley. But here are our Lyonnaise potatoes. Now, I did forget to season with salt and pepper, so I'm going to do that now. Just a little bit of pepper and a pinch of salt. And now for the taste test. These are freaking amazing. Crispy, rich, everything a pan-fried potato should be. You get the onion flavor, you get sort of butter notes. They're just delicious. Now, if you find this content interesting, I hope I earned a like and a subscription from you, and please check out my Patreon page where you can find access to 3 to 6 months of videos before they become public. I'm recording this one, for example, at the end of November. Expected to go public near the end of March. So, additionally, if you make this dish, feel free to let me know how you do it differently. Let other people know who read this how they do it differently. Love to hear those kinds of comments. It provides a lot of value for people trying to figure out how to cook these sorts of dishes. And certainly feel free to share this to any of your friends who are interested. Now, as I always say, recipes in the description. Bon appetit, and see you next week.